Yeah, what we're going to look at today is one of the plastic fender wells on the 2014 Alpine. It's got a couple of cracks around some of the screw holes that attach the fender well to the aluminum skirting here. And what we're going to do is pull this plastic fender well off, and you can see the crack right here. And we had another crack a couple of years ago that I repaired and used some dual epoxy poly plastic epoxy on it, and held up good, but over time it discolored a little bit. The repair has been solid and has not re-cracked. But what we're going to do is we're going to pull this whole plastic fender well off. We're going to wash it first, get it clean so that it's not got dirt and stuff on it, so that when we do go to facilitate the repair on this crack that we have here. And I also noticed down here at the bottom edge what appears to be a little bit of a crack. You can just see in front of my fingernail, and so we're going to fix that before it becomes a bigger issue. Okay, so now we have the entire fender skirting removed so that we can take it inside and work on it. And one of the things I want to show you that you want to be aware of is right in the center of these tires there'll be a long piece of metal, and what that does is it attaches down towards the bottom edge, and you can see right here is where it attaches to, and then up above it are the holes that go along the top edge of the fender and attach to the fender skirt. Keystone did a marvelous job when they engineered this. This strap, as you can see, is a little bit loose, and with this looseness that you see right here, it's going to let that fender skirt vibrate, and you'll probably see the fender skirt moving like this as you're going down the road. And the reason it's doing that is this fender support bar that should be well anchored and is not. It's only held by one self-tapping screw that is way up inside here where my finger is pointing at, and that's about as good a image as I can get for you. Yeah, there we go. Maybe that's a little better. Way up in here where my finger is, yeah, right there is where the one single self-tap sheet metal screw is, and you can see that there's a lot of play. The other little piece that this bracket mounts to right behind it is ample enough to support that fender skirt. So what I'm going to do before I put this fender skirt back on, I'm going to take and put an additional hole down here as close to the bottom that I can in this long piece of metal that runs down and lets me anchor the fender well to the bracket. And so we're going to drill another hole, and instead of using a self-tapping screw, I will use a machine screw with a washer and a nut on it, and I know that it won't come loose, and then you'll see that this in fact is going to be secured and tight, and we'll get to this here in a minute. And so what I've done is I've temporarily just holding the fender well up, and you see this little hole right here. Well, on the back side of this is where that bracket is at, and what I've done is move that bracket until I can see the hole from the original attach point, which is right there, and we'll double check that. And what I've done now is I've made a little scribe mark right on this side of this bar and on this side of the bar, and just two lines with a magic marker so that I know where this rod needs to be when I anchor down and put a second screw in here. And what I'm going to use to anchor that bar with is I'm going to use some number 8 machine screws that are a 1/2 inch long, and I've also got some number 8 flat washers. I'll use a flat washer on the back side of the nut. And I wanted to put a lock washer on, but Wally World didn't have any, so what I'll do is install all of this, and then when I get the nut installed on the back side and tight, I'll put a little daub of silicone on the back of that nut so that I know the nut can't work loose with road vibration. And it's starting to get a little warm out here in Idaho, but you can see now where I have drilled and installed this machine screw, and it has a nut on the back side. And now when you look at this brace, it's nice and tight and it's not going to go anywhere. And so I'll be able to reattach the fender when I get it repaired, the fender well actually, and we'll have a nice tight mid support bracket in between these two wheels. Okay, so we've got this fender well back in the wood shop where it's just a little cooler. It's about 100 out, and if you can see now when I move this, you can see in fact there is a crack, and it starts right up here at the edge and runs down to about right here. And so what we're going to do to stop that from cracking further is we're going to stop drill it. And so today, instead of getting my cordless drill and drill bits out, I'm just going to use the wife's Dremel drill and with a small drill bit, and I've marked down here where this crack is at and where it ends at, and so we'll drill a small stop drill hole at the end of that crack. Okay, so now we've stop drilled this hole, and you can see where the crack runs right to the hole, and there is no crack on the other side of the hole, so the hole will stop that crack from getting larger. And down just a little ways we had the other small crack, and so we've also put a stop drill right in there so that that will stop that crack from getting any larger. If you don't make a small stop drill at the end of these cracks and you just do a repair over it, it's just going to crack again. So you're going to have to make you know, a small stop drill hole. And we're looking now on the back side of where I drilled that stop drill hole at on this the longest crack, and you can see the crack runs up to here, and you can see where the stop drill is at. And then if we look down here on this other spot and hold on one, and you can see that we have also stop drilled this to prevent it from cracking further. While we're at it, I'll show you I repaired this fender, this very same fender back in I think 2018, and you can see where the epoxy is still in good shape. And you might be wondering what this is. It's a very small thin piece of metal, and what I did was attach the thin piece of metal onto the epoxy on the backside. Since this was such a very large crack, I wanted to give this a little reinforcement. So with this thin piece of aluminum metal back here, it acts as a doubler and provides a little more strength. And we've also got a repair that we did back here, and you can see that the epoxy since I think it was about 2018 when I did this, so that's over 3 years of on the Alpine flexing back and forth, and it's not cracked again. And this is a front view of the repair I was showing you that I did back in 2018. We'll flip this over where you can see where the I've epoxied it on the back, a little bit of doubler, just a material to give it just a little bit more strength. And then on the front side, you can see where we've done the repair, and you know, here it is almost August of 2021, so that's over 3 years. And this particular side of the Alpine gets the direct sun from noon till the sun sets every day here in the summer months. So, and it temps over 100 degrees. I think the color is held up very well on this repair, and I can blend that in with a little spray paint, which is what I am going to do. And you can see where we did another repair right here at the same time back in 2018, and neither of those have cracked. So stop drilling and using the right epoxy will make you a nice repair. For this repair that we're going to do today, I used JB Weld, but not just the everyday 5-minute JB Weld. If you'll notice, this says plastic bonder, and that's what you want to use if you're trying to repair plastic material that's got cracks or damage in it. This stuff works, and it works well. And I think the proof in the pudding is, you know, I showed you, this repair that was made back in 2018, and it has not cracked again. Now, some will say, well, you know, that's going to look gaudy on my Alpine, and, you know, I'm just going to go buy a new fender. Well, if you want to keep doling the cash out of your pocketbook and buying new parts every time something gets a little cosmetic problem with it, then that's your choice. You know, I just don't have the bucks to spend on that stuff. I'm a little bit spendthrift in my older age, so what I'm after with my repair on this fender is I want to fix these cracks that we've got up here so that one, the cracks don't become bigger, and number two, by fixing these cracks so they don't become bigger, I won't look in the side mirrors and see half the fender rip off and go blowing down the highway, and then I would have to buy a new one. So we're going to do the repair the old school, old-fashioned, cheap way, I guess you'd say. So before I mix the plastic bonder up that we have sitting over here, what I want to do is I want to get both these surfaces clean a little bit, and you could do this with some light grit sandpaper. Probably 180 grit would be aggressive enough, or if you have a small wire wheel to put on your cordless drill, that would work. And what we're going to do is we're going to rough up, I think we'll do the back sides first. I just want to rough this material up around the edges right here, so that when I apply the epoxy, I'll be applying it to both these areas that have been scuffed up a little bit, and that should allow that epoxy to adhere better. And so I just happen to have the wife's handy-dandy Dremel tool here. So I thought, you know, why not try this new gizmo that she's got? So we'll film just a little bit of this, and it does a nice job, nice and quick. I can get in there and stuff that material up, take the shine off of it, which is what I want to do. Get a nice clean surface for that bonder material to adhere to. And so you can see how we've roughed this area up. And another quick look at the back side of this. We've got this nice and scuffed up so the plastic bonder will adhere to the fender material. And now we're going to do the same thing and rough this surface up just a little bit on the front side, so that this material has all the surface dust and oxidation and stuff like that cleaned off of the front side as well as the back side, so that that plastic mender will bond to it. And so we'll do the rest of this off video and show you when we're done. Okay, so now we've roughed up the outside exterior surface of both these areas as well as the inside. And so now we'll get this plastic bonder out and mix it together and put this on there, and we'll let it cure up. And we've got an equal mix here of the plastic bonder, and so we'll mix this up, and we'll let it sit for a minute to start curing up a little bit, so it won't be quite as runny as what it is at the moment. And I'm just using a toothpick. I think that'll be more than adequate for the repair that I'm going to make. And you can see I didn't mix up very much at one time. And don't like to be wasteful, and if I need some more, I can always put a little bit more out here and mix it up. Okay, so we've fabricated our repair on the back side, and I always go just a little bit extra wide, and that way I know I've got a nice overlap over where those cracks were at. And you can see that I covered over where the stop drills holes were at, and so that's what the repairs are going to look like. And when this epoxy dries out, it will dry out almost clear. And again, we're using JB plastic bonder, not just the old JB weld. Okay, so we've got the tape removed, which was my rough outline, so I knew where I wanted to apply the epoxy, but yet not smear too much all over the rest of the fender. And then what I like to do is I just use a toothpick, and I'll put that toothpick in the epoxy, and I'll come back out here in a little while, probably about 10 or 15 minutes, and when I can't move that toothpick, then I know that epoxy has set up. Okay, so we had checked the epoxy and it's dried and cured. And so what I've done is taken and put just a little bit of black spray paint, kind of blended it in to the repair that I've made here. And you can see how those repairs came out. And we touched up my original repairs from 2 years ago. Now some would say, well, why aren't you spray painting the whole fender? Well, the color that's on these plastic fenders is blended in with the material when these fenders are made. And I know if I spray paint this, even with a good quality spray paint, it's going to look good for a while, but then eventually it's going to start fading and peeling off. Whereas with just these little touch-up spots, I can live with that cosmetically. My repair is to try to make it look as good as I can cosmetically, but also what I'm really after is having a repair that is going to hold up and last, and so that these fender wells don't crack and blow off on the road. Yeah, we've got the fender cracks repaired, and we've got new machine screws put in with washers, and then we painted these black before we put them on the panel. And then on the back side I take a piece of rubber inner tube and put on the back side of each one of these screws, and what that does is when it mates up against the holes here, it gives a little bit of a cushion in between the fender and the fender skirting, so it absorbs a little bit of the vibration and helps prevent future cracking. So what we're going to do now is a couple of these holes are just a little bit small for the machine screws, so we're going to drill those out just a little bit more in diameter so the machine screws will fit through easily, and then we'll put the fender in place and put the nuts on the back and tighten those down, and the fender should be good for a few more miles. And we've got the fender mounted back on, and all of the machine screws are painted, and you can see that when we grab a hold of this fender and try to move it, it's nice and solid and it's not wobbling in the wind anymore. And so instead of spending $100 to buy a new fender, we were able to repair this cracked fender again, and we'll get some more miles out of it, and then if it cracks later on to where it's not repairable or looks too bad, then we'll replace it. But for right now, I think it'll do just fine for this old 2014 Alpine.